And yeah, we are started recording. So, good evening, everyone. Welcome back once more. So, let me start with my presentation, and that will kind of give you a context of what we are expecting today. I'll be sharing my entire screen, right? Uh, I'll be sharing my entire screen. And remember, decision. Oh, okay. Allow. So, is my screen visible to you?
Yes.
Okay, nice to hear that. So let me start this full screen, right? Or maybe not. So essentially, this is the presentation. I'll share the link with you so that you can also access it offline, because there are some important links in this presentation. So without further ado, I'll just thank Interaction Design Foundation for giving this great opportunity and this great platform for every one of us to interact. So let me begin with a brief introduction of myself. My name is Prasanna Gadkari. I am based out of Pune currently. I hold a mechanical engineering degree, and I did my masters in product design in 2009 from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. I worked for several companies such as Eaton and Schlumberger as a product designer. I was a manager at Larsen and Toubro. I used to work for Cisco through Zensar, worked for companies like Canada Life in Canada and ThoughtWorks, and now currently I have joined Amazon as a UX designer. Uh, and At Amazon, I work for Lab 126, which is the devices lab. So essentially, you might have heard about Kindle, Alexa, Echo, Fire Stick, and stuff like that. So that is the lab which is responsible for designing, and I'm a part of that entire journey. So this is I also had cracked Google. I didn't join them for certain reasons, but essentially yes, that's the long story short and a brief introduction. And I'll admit a few more folks, right? So let me just jump straight to the 7 tips which all of us are waiting here. So even before we begin, right, let me tell you briefly what is a portfolio. So essentially, the portfolio is said to be a collection of your best work, which showcase your skills and your method. Some of the artists build a portfolio to show what is their best art pieces or what is the style of working and so on. But essentially, for a designer, the portfolio is typically made so that it shows their UX skill, UI skill, or whatever other skills that they want to showcase, right? And this is the typical hiring process which works at most of the top tech companies as well as for some smaller companies. So what happens is that a designer, typically what I recommend everyone is to embed a link to the portfolio in the CV itself, so that the CV and the portfolio link doesn't get separated. So don't insert your CV, don't insert your portfolio link directly in the body of the mail which you send out to your manager or something. So best way is to include the link in the CV itself. That is the first thing. Now, what happens? The next step is typically the hiring manager looks at the CV and then the portfolio. Typically, here hiring managers are in great hurry because all they have to do is shortlist the candidates. So they might look at your portfolio for only about 1 or 2 minutes. This is the first time they will look at your portfolio. The second time when they will actually shortlist a few candidates on basis of their portfolio and CV, and then the HR will actually screen or call the candidates on basis of what the hiring manager has recommended them. Then there is a optional part which is basically the hiring manager will provide you a case study or something. It's not always the case, but some companies do that. And then you will have a face-to-face round where you will meet your manager, maybe the HR, maybe a few other folks as well, and you will be able to showcase your portfolio to them. And this is the place where you show your detailed portfolio in the best possible way that you find most suitable. And meanwhile, just feel free to type in your thoughts and comments in the comment section of this chat. I will return to them once I finish this short presentation, right? So I won't be able to check them right now, but please feel free. I'll definitely pick them up. So don't worry. You can always chime in your thoughts on the comment section, right? Then coming the to the next round, basically you might have the rounds with the HR and management, and you'll get offer. So these are the two places which are highlighted. So one part of your portfolio is where the manager will skim through the portfolio for about 1 or 2 minutes, and the second place where you have to share the same portfolio, and there will be a detailed discussion around it. So these are the two places where actually you will have to showcase your portfolio, and this is the basis of the entire how you make your portfolio. So there should be a layer. So the portfolio should have headings which the manager, if he or she skims through it, will be able to glean what all your skill sets are, how you have tackled the problem, and so on. And then the portfolio, the each case study should have enough meat so that you will be able to tell them in great detail what your thought process is and so on. So that's the typical hiring cycle, and that is where what's the significance how the portfolio fits in. Now coming to the tips directly. So let me speak about the tips. So the first tip is that keep your portfolio visual. So as an example, I have given Meena's portfolio. So Meena has basically created a very simple user journey. So what I liked, so this is a screenshot from a portfolio, by the way. So once someone sees a portfolio, they will actually have only a couple of minutes. So just in couple of minutes, they will be able to see like she has created a user journey flow, and they, even if they don't go too much deep into it, they'll quickly see that there is some entry point, explore, payment, and some high level steps. So they will actually just in couple of minutes, even if they get this much amount of time, they will quickly know that what skill set of Meena is that she can actually make good user journey flows and so on. This is the first tip. The second tip, and I'll come to my portfolio as well, and I'll show you how I have implemented this as well. But these are some of the best portfolios. The second tip is that highlight the problem you're solving. So many of the portfolios which I have seen in the past are actually having this problem that hey, the problem is written very descriptively, and that doesn't really help because, as I told you, the hiring manager doesn't have too much time. So what I really liked about the Valerie's portfolio is this, that she has actually highlighted that the delivery man then is the name of the project, and below that in just one line she has said that she wants to improve the driving style and cut fuel cost with gamification. So the hiring manager can expect that they, when they open this portfolio or the case study, they are going to see the gamification, and they are going to see something about fuel cost and how that's being cut and so on, and they can even see a small teaser here. So this is a good idea. So this is what I really liked about this portfolio. The tip number 3 is that don't pick too many problems to solve. For example, you might, so in any of the case studies, you might face a lot of problems that maybe from stakeholders, maybe from users. However, actually the intent of your portfolio is to show that you are capable of solving problems and not really what all problems you have solved. So essentially speaking, don't pick like 15 or 20 problems for each case study. Just pick 2 or 3 top problems that the users face. You can frame it like Melinda has done here. So she's from Samsung, by the way. So she has actually said like, what is the top problem, and look how less amount of words she has used. She's being very frugal with the number of words she has used here, and this is like she has actually highlighted that what she wants to do and what is the product goal. So she has only picked up 3 problems, and she has throughout her portfolio solved them. So I recommend you also to do this. This will really help you to like keep the focus of your portfolio throughout the entire case study. Tip number 4. Many folks actually end up with dribble shots and stuff like that, but actually this is the real dirty piece of work. This comes from Simon Penn's legendary portfolio. Essentially, he had worked for Amazon Prime Music, and what's so legendary about it is that he's trying to convey that hey, I am not afraid to get my hands dirty, and this is the entire thinking process behind what has gone into it. So though you see only one screen here, I have put like so much of thought process into it. So this is what really uh, puts the entire back end of your portfolio. This shows to everyone that hey, you are the one of the designers who will actually talk with everyone. You will actually create concepts. You are not afraid of doing whiteboarding and stuff like that. So this is what I really like, that it actually shows that you are not stolen the portfolio from anyone. You are actually doing it like grounds up, like typical what happens in a company in which you will be hired for, right? The fifth tip is essentially that you need to explain instead of showing. Now you will start shouting at me saying that hey, I just said that you should keep your text really terse, but here is the thing, right? And this is the sample taken from Vandana Pai's portfolio from Spotify. So she works at Spotify. So what she has done in this shot is that she actually has shown, so she has explained that, hey, look at this shot, there are problems in this shot which I want to highlight, and she has like shown that there is a problem, like she has highlighted something here and she has given a brief description of the problem. So she's explaining as well as she's showing here. So she's just not showing, she's actually like telling that what exactly she's trying to communicate through the screen. So if you do that kind of thing, right, when you are, when the hiring manager is either looking through your portfolio in really short time, they will understand that, hey, these are the some of the things that that needs to be put there, and this is what the intent of the this particular screenshot is. And at the same time they will understand that, okay, this is what you're trying to communicate, or this is how you use the screenshot here, and stuff like that. So this is the another point which I want to communicate. The sixth tip is that see, you are a UX designer or maybe a UI designer, whatever you are applying for, right? It is very important that you are working with a team. So your intent as a UX designer is to be advocate of the users, and you have to really advocate and impact the business in such a way that your advice will also help the users be happy and make the business more profits or make more money for them. So that's why the company is paying you for. And this is from the Anton's portfolio. Essentially, the way he has written, even before he started deep diving into the portfolio, he has spoken about like who is the site owner, what the website is about, what are the goals of the website, and then he has dived deep and like designed that website. So essentially, he's talking about the business intent here. So which is what really sets you apart from the rest of the crowd, is what I really recommend to you, is that you should focus on that aspect as well. The seventh and the final tip, uh, and this is very common thing which I have observed in any of the portfolios, is I feel that you shouldn't show the stuff which is under non-disclosure agreement. So maybe in your current job you might have signed a non-disclosure agreement with the current company, and you still want to show some of the stuff. You want to tell that, hey, I have done this awesome website, I have spoken with like 10 people and like came up with these requirements and so on. However, because of the non-disclosure agreement, I honestly feel that you shouldn't show it. Now it's completely left up to you, in the sense that no one is going to hold you at gunpoint if you do that. But there are repercussions. In a very simple way, what happens is that, see, imagine that your friend has told you some secret. You don't disclose it to someone else. So imagine that this is from Simon Penn's portfolio. So imagine that Simon Penn is working with Amazon Prime Music, and he has shown some of the significant artifacts from Amazon Prime Music to competitor of Amazon. And say because Prime Music is there, maybe the competitor is Spotify, and Spotify steals some of the Amazon idea, removing their competitive edge. So that is what the intent is. So what you should do is really, and I can take this question later as well, I have been asked on this a couple of times. What you should do is, either one, you should ask your manager that, is it okay to put parts of your portfolio in the part of your work in the portfolio which really you have done and doesn't disclose anything confidential. Or second is that you actually tell that, like for example Simon Penn has done here, to comply with the non-disclosure agreement, I have omitted and obfuscated some of the confidential information in this case study, which is fine. So he is like presenting some fake information. So these are the 7 tips which I promised to deliver in 15 minutes, right? Okay, even though I have said a Q&A and doubt, let me show you my portfolio as well, just to give you an idea, right? Uh, but before that, I'll just pause for a second and check. Okay, I do see. Thanks. Okay, guys, good. You can always write your doubts in the comment section there, and I'll pick them up as I return back here, right? So here is my portfolio. My portfolio is a website which is called byprasanna.com. It's just a website, right? I mean, I am not a very good designer of websites, but essentially, so I'll walk you through a couple of case studies. So let me open the first app, which is the Biker app. And in the Biker app, what I'm trying to do is, this is like the this is what this app does, and this is what I'm trying to highlight here. And again, see, because I have written the something similar to what Simon Penn has done, a non-disclosure agreement. Some of the items have been replaced by fictitious one and so on. And this is the hero image which I'm trying to show that, hey, these are the top features which I want to show in this app, and this is how the entire screen will look like. Now you will see here that this particular app follows the material standard very closely, and that is the exact intent of this design as well, which I'll come to that. So essentially, in one, what is the motivation for creating of an app, and this is the business end. So essentially, I have spoken about the Indian bikers, who are they, what are they typically doing, and stuff like that. And I have spoken with few users, and who is the user. I have created a persona. It's not necessary to create persona every time. I'll come to that as well. I spoke with a few users. I have included some of the quotations here, and what data to gather. So these are the pre-research preparation. Now remember, this portfolio or this particular case study is a research-heavy case study, because I want to portray that I can collect the user requirements and so on, and the choice of the research method is written and so on. But all this is text. A hiring manager who will go through this portfolio in a short time will not really see each and every line which I have written. They will actually see what data to gather. So basically, this is a pre-research preparation and so on. They will see ethnography research. So basically, this is the technique which I used, collecting data from the ethnographic research. So what I have done, why ethnographic research? I don't think anyone will go through this, but I have written the reasons in case I am not in front to present. But if I am present in front of them, I'll tell them that this is a very niche community and so on. They have very strong culture and style requirements and so on. But yeah, essentially that is what it is. I have picked up what equipment I use for research. So these kind of shots, right? These kind of shots actually authenticate that actually you have got your hands dirty, and you have actually went to the field to collect all the data yourself and not really relied on anyone else. So which is why I'm speaking about. Then these are the observations. So I have recorded all the findings. So this is typically how ethnography research is presented, like in context, to other actors and so on. Enjoyable acts, but I won't go through that. And then comes the current user flow. So I have drawn a current user flow for typically what bikers do in their day-to-day activity. Requirement mapping. So essentially this is another technique which I use, like what are the users saying and what features I have derived from them and so on. Information architecture, very much standard piece of work. Concepts. So these are these are hand-drawn wireframes. I have not created them using Photoshop or anything. So you see here, I have like got my hands dirty, and I have like really gone deep into this, and each concept is fairly different one. These are not the same screens. So essentially I want to portray that, hey, I'm good with pen and paper. I don't really need any tool for like putting my thoughts out there on a piece of paper. And then comes the interaction diagram. So essentially it shows that and these are actually low fidelity wireframes, if you call it that way. So essentially what goes where when you tap it and so on. So these are the interactions that will lead to different places. Then comes the task flow. So task flow essentially speaks about what are the top 3 problems which I'm trying to solve. So creating a new trip, inviting new bikers to join, and accepting biker requests. So these are the 3 steps, and I want to show them on low fidelity. So how it actually works. So how simple it is to navigate, and how easy it is to like create new trip. I have even taken care of ergonomics because I come from product design background. So these are see this is again a hand-drawn sketch. So these are the kind of stuff which I do. I have picked up one very specific problem, that at even this distance, the biker can actually see there is some alert flashing on their screen. So taking the eyes off their road could be very fatal for them. So essentially, but nonetheless, they will just see some screen turning red in color just to indicate there is some trouble. Then comes the visual design, and as I told you, my portfolio is not visual design heavy, and this is the visual design. Yeah, these are some loading animations I created in After Effects. I no longer do these things, but yeah, back then I did those. This is the first case study, and please feel free to. And the next one is only the one I'll present, and I'll stop to take your doubts from here, right? This is Vitta. Vitta is basically a mobile banking app targeted towards the young generation who have a low-end smartphone. So a smartphone that doesn't support too much of graphics and is not very tech heavy. This is the market research. Now see, I have changed the tone. Now earlier for the biker app, I was presenting something related with ethnographic research and stuff like that. Now I'm speaking a purely marketing language, like what is the typical market segmentation, what are the features used, who is a casual user, who is an advanced user. So this is segmentation which I'm talking about, and a person from marketing will easily understand what I'm talking about. So essentially the advanced user uh, uh, use a lot of features, while casual users use very small number of features. However, the casual users do a lot of transactions using those small features, but advanced users don't do too many transactions. Basically what I'm trying to do, then I have created a personalized usual uh, the mood board. So essentially, because someone needs to justify what was the use of the colors and what colors you picked up, I created this mood board for the youth generation. So youth was my topic. I used Adobe Color to pick up the colors from this, so I did not use my own uh, twisted process to find out what are the colors to pick up. But essentially, Adobe Color helped me to pick up what colors to pick. Created a card sorting. Now you can see, I have like told you, like I want to include those kind of screenshots. The wireframes, and these wireframes, like I showed you earlier, these are like hand-drawn wireframes, and this is the scanned copy of that hand-drawn wireframes showing different flows and so on. Then comes the my basic problem which I'm trying to solve. So low-end smartphones, right, have very low RAM, and I want to show that what kind of RAM is being consumed by what element. So I have like tried to break down the entire structure into RAM consumption so that it becomes technical. Now you see in this portfolio, in this case study, it is very different from the earlier case study, and that is what you should be doing. You should present each of the case studies in slightly different ways. So you use the correct methodology to solve the problem, and that is what it is. And finally, the anatomy. So anatomy basically tells about like what are the different what is the structure of my app. So essentially there's a navigation bar, you see the three transactions, and this is like the most used screen in my entire app. And that is what I understand, right? And this is the anatomy of the screen, just some visual, nothing fancy about it. And then comes the visual design, and I have included just to showcase. So remember, for the previous app, I have not included a prototype, but this one is a prototype. So essentially, I have like allowed people to play around with this. Now you will say that if I have already included this, why did I include the visual designs? The reason for that is hiring managers would might want to see each of these screens in great depth. So but people who want to play around with it, this is the kind of animation that they will get in case they play around with this prototype. And I want to show my prototyping skills as well. So this is the thing. And finally, the conclusion, the future scope. So I included a future scope, and that is how it goes. So essentially, yeah, these are the two case studies which I wish to present in this. uh, there are others as well, you can go. And meanwhile, while we are still here, I will now stop sharing the screen and pick up your questions. And let me also share the link to this presentation so that you can refer to all these beautiful pieces of portfolio which I've been addressing till now. So just let me paste the link to this presentation, and let me share the link to my portfolio as well, which you can have a look at your leisure time. Okay, cool. So before okay, there are a lot of questions uh, which I see here. So I will first pick up this question, and then you can, then it's free for all. You can like jump onto me and start asking. Looking forward to learning for you all. Yeah. Oh yeah. Tushar Pawar has asked first question that hi Prasanna, B2B or B2C, which industry is more challenging to work? Tushar, CPDM. Hey CPDM. Yeah, CPDM is, by the way, my alma maters where I did my masters from. So so Tushar is asking which industry is more challenging to work. Honestly, honestly, each industry has a different set of problems, and if you really ask me, B2C has slightly more liberal approach because you actually are not constrained by technology. I see B2B to be a slightly more technologically constrained one, and that's where I really recommend, if you get a choice down the line, uh, pick up B2C. Uh, but that's just my preference, and yeah. So I hope that answers the question. In case it doesn't, you can always ask me. Let me take Anil's question. I'm shifting from IT domain to UI, okay, UX UI, and finished a course from local institute in Bangalore. It has become challenging to complete my portfolio as the institute made us do everything hypothetically. Okay. Okay, can you suggest me right step to finish a portfolio and find a job? Sure, Anil. So three things. First of all, though you were doing a hypothetical portfolio, you know the methodology now, so you can pick up a case study, you can pick up a problem, and you can solve it. And I'll come to this as well. But let me just finish this answering this question. So what you do is really you pick up a problem and you then do actual user analysis. You actually speak with the users. You actually think that what are the requirements, and then you can actually think that so-called your hypothetical work can be made more practical. That is the first thing. The second thing is what I suggest you is you can actually approach some folks like NGO, and you can ask them that do you want to redesign something, or sometimes it's okay to do that because typically NGOs don't have a non-disclosure and so on. But that's cool. You can that I'll leave to you. And the third thing, right? You need to finish the portfolio. So essentially, you need to, like, whatever you have learned, like you have learned in more a theoretical way. You can create a portfolio piece that will actually reflect something more practical, and then you can use this portfolio, embed the link in your CV, and start applying for job. Now coming to the point, right? Let me tell you that what kind of problems you should be choosing. I would tell you, for example, see, I always used to believe that banking is something that has a lot of future, right? I mean, banking is where all the money is, in my opinion. So let me share how to actually pick up a problem so that you will be lucrative from the industry. And let me share my screen again. Your entire screen I'm sharing, right? Uh, Entire screen, and I'll allow, right? So let me show you. For example, what you do is go to Economic Times. In that, you hover on the industry. In the industry, actually, and I've been speaking with folks, right? See, for example, banking and finance. I click on banking and finance. Now you will see that, you'll see news here. Like, for example, Indian banks says customers may face service disruption this weekend due to software migration. So what about this? That you create an app to allow users to find out that there's a service disruption in area, and probably create an interface for the folks who are going to send out such notifications to the customer. So basically, there are two players in this. The one player is the a bank employee who is going to send out this disruption notification, and then there are customers who are going to read these notifications. And there could be app, there could be a SMS, there could be multiple ways in which they interact. Then you can even put gamification to that, saying that, hey, for the employee who has alerted the maximum number of users, they can do it. So this is how you pick up, and when you present this problem to anyone, you already have a marketing basis for this. So essentially, no one can challenge you further that, hey, on what basis are you going to speaking this is not another coronavirus app or something. Cool. So yeah, I hope that I answered your question, Anil. I would pick up Aishwarya Mathu's question. What courses from IDF do you recommend for UX designer? Do companies consider certifications for IDF? Unfortunately, the certifications themselves are not considered, but IDF is a great source of information. So what I really recommend you do, for example, the ethnographic research which I showed you a moment back, is what I picked up from IDF. So this is what I learned from IDF, one of the courses there, which is about the user research. And I suggest that you take the knowledge and present it rather than just showing you have got a certification. So essentially speaking, the certification doesn't have too much value in the company. I have got Ninja Amara. Okay. Hi Prasanna, I have been shortlisted by organization on basis of the design challenge. There is no clarity on the next round of interview. Yeah, I know it happens. It happened a lot of time with me. And I don't have the portfolio too. It's in process. How should I deal with such situation? Two things. Uh, so what you do is, you whatever the in process portfolio you have, you just put it out there. You share a link to that and tell them that it's in process, but nonetheless this is what you're going to do further. So whatever things you have, you just show them. And if you don't have next clarity on the next round for the interviews, what you do is that you turn up a not a well designed portfolio, but at least having a portfolio is better than not having any portfolio. So I recommend you do that, right? And I hope that I have, in case, see, I'll just pick these questions, and then we can have like a good discussion on this as well. In case I miss out the answer to this, you can always ping here, or you can speak in a minute, right? Tanvi is asking, I have a portfolio in Behance and I want to apply for jobs masters in the near future. Do you suggest create my own? No, it's not necessary to create your own website to show your work. most companies are not really interested for seeing your website per se. They are interested in seeing your work as such. And that's what I recommend to you, that don't jump and waste a lot of money on this website creation. And making your own website is cool enough to create your portfolio in Behance and just share the link to your CV. uh, Kankesh. Hey Kankesh, good to see you back, man. Hey, I can't show my real projects in my portfolio due to NDA. Can I show hypothetical use case? Yeah, of course. So see, even in my portfolio, all my projects are actually hypothetical in nature. So I have shown used the real process for the basis of them. I actually have I have all these case studies very much in not really company specific. So yeah, that's the answer to your question. Probably the only one which I have, and I don't have NDA with them, is a company called Sadbhav, and I can show you that as well. But you can just visit my portfolio, you'll get it. Um, Chidambara is asking, hi Prasanna, as I mentioned to you, I also had NDA with my company, so can't able to show designs in my portfolio. Very have a very old designs on Behance. How can I proceed in this situation? Two things again. One, you can actually ask the old company that now your product is market and now that NDA, you needed to honor that, or is it okay to now disclose some of the designs because they have served a business intent? That is one thing. Second, you can actually ask, or maybe if you don't want to ask, and because these designs are very old, you can redesign them. So you can pick up the business problem and say that this is everything is fake here. However, this is the real design situation which we faced, and this is how I solved it. Right? Uh, oh, is this Sharmishtha? Excuse me if I butcher your name. Okay, really sorry for that. Hi Prasanna. While making a portfolio, do we need to show all the flows in high fidelity? It's a good idea to show all your flows, not all your flows, but at least some salient screens in high fidelity. That will help to, because see, even I can't really make head or tails out of just seeing low fidelity mockups or low fidelity wireframes. So I really recommend at least make 3 to 4 screens in high fidelity just to give a flavor of how your final design will look like. So for choosing which 3 or 4 screens you will pick up, what I recommend, the most used screens should be picked up. Don't pick up a sign-in journey or anything. Just pick up like the home screen or something that each and every user might see. That is what I recommend to you. Naman is asking, hi Prasanna sir, I am a student looking for internship. How can I go into AR? I assume that's augmented reality, and make a case study which is very much realistic. Uh, I don't know answer to that, man. Probably designed for AR. There is a course offered by IDF which is designed for augmented and virtual reality. Maybe you can pick that up. You can see what steps they are recommending for you to follow, and you can pick up a hypothetical problem like I showed you from Economic Times or someplace, and build a solution around it so that your case study will be grounded. And yeah, I think I will take two more of this. Priyanka is asking, I am currently a software engineer and want to switch to UI UX. Okay, due to my interest in the design, what should be my approach to reach the industry without design degree? Very good question. So your approach should be fairly straightforward. That, see, first thing, you build a portfolio. So so even when I made a transition from product design to UI UX in 2016, I basically faced the same situation. So essentially speaking, I created a portfolio. I applied for about 300 jobs. I got 30 job calls on basis of that. I got rejected on all of them. It was fairly frustrating for me. But however, what I learned in that certain design manager asked me a question that, hey, where are the user flows or stuff like that. So I said, oh, okay, so you have to really include a user flow. Maybe I'll update my portfolio, and that's how I kept on updating. And within a few months, I actually landed a job in UI UX. So that's how what works really. So you have to build a portfolio, right? And you have to start applying for the jobs that you are eligible for. Uh, Ninja is again saying anxiety is killing me. Oh, sorry to hear that, man. I mean, can I show them one? Can I show them one case study and explain it and tell them the truth? Of course, you do that, right? You just show them the case study and tell them in the truth that, hey, look, dude, it's like this case study in work in progress, but this is all I'm doing. If you like, if you want to see it, just give me a 1 week or something, or I can do a small case study or a design a challenge for you if you have that in mind. Because my portfolio is not ready, that's fine. You always tell the truth. You don't have to lie to anyone for that. Okay. Anika is saying I'm working for UI as a UX designer for 3 years now. That's great. Should I go for masters or continue with a job? Classic question. If you do your masters, right, you have a long term. It's like a long term insurance. So as long as you have masters, you have dedicatedly studied that thing for 2 years or maybe 1 year, whatever the duration is, and that actually puts you in edge. And many of the actually companies ask for a master's degree in their job description, so that will really put that thing together for you. Prachi is asking, I want to apply for, okay, that mode. I want to apply for UX research job. Is it necessary to have more number of research projects in the portfolio? No, you don't have to have more number of uh, the case studies in your portfolio doesn't really matter. What you have to do, Prachi, is you have to show that you are capable of using different techniques. For example, I showed you the ethnographic research piece in my biker app, whereas I showed the marketing research piece in my banking app. You can actually do this way. You can actually show ethnographic research in one. You can pick up any other user research technique, maybe psychological analysis is another one, and that will actually show your ability to do user research in different things. Bhavin is asking, is there a specific site for creating portfolio? Three actually. So the one site I really liked is Behance. Behance is a great site to create your case studies. I recommend you to do that. Second is UX Folio. You can just search it on internet. You'll get it. It's very fairly famous one. And I have seen people upload their portfolios onto WordPress and places like that. I'm in the free WordPress, so it will look something like that. bhavinswamy.wordpress.com or something like that. That's also cool, no problem. And I would take this question and probably then I'll open the mic for everyone. Hi Prasanna, I am from fine arts background. Shweta is asking, my portfolio is visually good, but I want recruiter to judge my UX skill too, but visual are more powerful. Okay, so what you really need to do is two things. You will have to nonetheless build, so before you have the visual or the UI side in front, you'll have to build a UX case before that. So what all logic has gone into building that visual is what you need to show as a part of your UX. That will really put this together. And typically what is happening nowadays in industry is that people want both UI and UX skill. It will really help you down the line. That's the only thing, right? uh Ninja is saying cool. And this is the last question before I open my mic. Hi Prasanna, how is it important to show user research in UX portfolio, especially when usability studies are done at organization for specific project? I think it's fairly important to show user research because otherwise you don't have grounding in what you are showing in the case study. So essentially speaking, if someone asks you that, hey, why did you choose this problem, does the user really want to see this, so you can always point back to the user research and say that, hey, 10 out of the 15 users I spoke with actually had this problem, and that is what grounds all your requirements. Especially when usability studies are not done at organization, I'll put that not there, for a specific project, and which is fine, right? You can actually say that, okay, I have worked in this organization, we have not done this user research, but this is how I would do it, and that is how you put up. So okay, I have taken all the questions which are typed here. You can continue typing or I'll take the mic, so whoever wants to go first can start speaking. I'm fine. Yeah, you'll just have to unmute yourself and speak. That's all you have to do.
Hey Prasanna, this is Alka here.
Hey Alka.
Okay, so I was working with a startup. It's a
Hmm.
fintech, and during COVID situation, I kind of lost my job. Now the scene is everything I have worked on.
Hmm.
I have worked on multiple projects
Hmm.
since it's a fintech. They have different clients, and every problem was different.
Hmm.
It's MBA. The same question.
Hmm.
Now my question is, the design which I did there were not that great,
Hmm.
and there was very less a scope of user research too.
Hmm.
Now I know if I would do this my way, I would do much better job. Okay, you have
Nice.
your stakeholders doing something. No, I don't want to do this. This color
Got it.
doesn't look good or whatever.
True.
So now I have MBA. Now can I take that as a problem statement and
Yeah.
do the research and make portfolio, will that still be like NDA kind of issue? That's my question is. Because visual design
Hmm.
and research, everything is done from scratch.
Hmm.
Because I am having a depth understanding of a user problem, I can do that.
Yes, Alka, I hear you. So essentially speaking, I really liked your confidence that you are able to do something much better, and it happened with me as well, right? You can pick up the problem statement saying that, hey, this is the problem statement taken from my previous job, and none of the rest of the portfolio reflects any of the opinions of the company, or none of the designs are belonging to company. It's completely my own solution to the problem, and it has not been like aligned with the organization goals or anything. So that actually will put you into a good shape. You can pick up that problem. It's perfectly fine. So yeah, you can go ahead and do that.
And then I will not
you
have that
you'll
NDA
you
issue.
will not have an NDA issue. You can, however, just one word of caution there, that if that problem is very solution driven. For example, you have used the problem itself is like a competitive edge. For example, I work in the OTT space, so Amazon is now entering the OTT space, and till yesterday or till the official launch, we are not able to speak about even that this is a problem that we are solving. So that thing you need to avoid. So that's all I'm saying. That unless your problem itself shouldn't reveal too much information about the company or make their life
So I
miserable.
would not disclose anything
Right.
about a company. I would state a problem as a general problem that
Yeah.
this problem is, and people face this problem in B2B scenario, and this is what I am doing. I have done the research, and hence this is the solution.
Yeah, sure. That will absolutely, generalizing a problem is a great way to go about it. And yeah, uh, that's what exactly I am also saying. That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll pick Tanvi's question. Can you suggest some tips to improve UI skills? So I've learned all my UI from watching YouTube videos. So that's the best tip I can give you. So what you do is essentially just open the whatever skill. Suppose you want to learn Figma, there are a lot of good Figma tutorials out there. Just follow that dude step to step, and once you do that, you will learn what different tools to use for different things, and then you can adopt these tools to your own problem. That is how I learned. And I did not join any classes or anything for this.
Can I
uh,
add
yes,
something?
Alka, please go ahead, Alka.
Yeah. So there are two things when you want to improve your UI skills. It's one is a design itself and research skill, and the another one is using tools.
Hmm.
So using tools, you can go for videos, but I think personally, to me, what helped was you browse good applications,
Hmm.
like the well-designed application. There are a lot of articles available, and you read the articles which is a best design
Hmm.
application.
Hmm.
Like Thread is one of them. Uh, MyGate, there is an application. These are well designed and well thought
Hmm.
uh, one. So I thought, I mean, personally to me, going through these products is what has helped me.
That's a great tip. So yeah, we should note that. Yeah, that is a good way to learn UX. For UI, probably, yeah, you can implement. You can see that how that screen might be built behind the scenes. But yeah, that's a great tip, Alka. Thanks for sharing that.
And Prasanna, I want to add something to
Yes,
this.
Neha, go ahead.
Yeah, so for the improving UI skills, maybe to practice daily would be a good suggestion because if you practice daily and look at your design which you have done just like 1 month ago,
Hmm.
would really help in improving your own skills and also compared to the applications which are available in the market
Hmm. So Neha is essentially sharing that you should do daily practice and see what all things are available in market, and practice it. That will really help, right? Is that correct, Neha? I'm just rephrasing you.
yes, yes, that is what, yeah, that is what I
Okay,
meant.
good to know.
Yes.
Hi Prasanna, Shweta here.
Yes, Shweta.
Yeah. So my question is how we can tackle the problem in such we don't have direct access to users, as well as our client is also confused and their product is actually, I'm working with one US client, and
Hmm.
our product is in fixed income market. The product is usually used for specific user is traders,
Hmm.
which sits in US, and the client itself doesn't know what they want to, you know. It is quite
Yeah.
difficult, and they don't give us liberty to, take decision to apply UX,
Hmm.
and then make design decisions. And for any specific element, if we want to change, then they bring everyone on the board and discuss about it, like, they bring the sales
Hmm.
team, marketing, and everyone, like, uh, everyone they bring and they start discussing. They don't give liberty. If this,
Hmm.
what I thought is how to tackle this kind of problem, because I don't have direct access.
Yeah.
And how they tool they built is like, it is since 2010, and the product they have designed is and built is uh, by developers, and
Hmm.
you can imagine how it is, and it is very vast, it is horrible, and functionally it is good. It
Hmm.
is solving their problem, but like, repeated many means heuristic evaluation I have done,
Hmm.
but it is many like changes we have to do.
Hmm.
But same time, this liberty I don't have, that don't have the direct access for with users, and as
Hmm.
well as uh, they don't give me liberty to take decisions, and
Hmm.
I'm the only person who is handling UX and UI. There is no design team, so
Hmm.
I can brainstorm with.
Got you. So Shweta, to answer your problem, actually you did a great thing that you did heuristic evaluation yourself. I think that's a great thing because honestly speaking, the design principles remain the same. So for example, if you don't have access to the users per se, you can always do ask the marketing team to see what is required, so that is taking the requirements without interacting with the users. Another thing is, see, you can always go ahead and tell them that the usability of this is wrong, this is what the value, this is what you will suggest as a solution, and this is what the value it will add to the entire business, not the users but the business. So that way you can actually justify. For example, if there is a text box or there is the button next to it is like really far away or something, you can always tell them that, hey, look, if I like redesign this text box in such a way that user just hits a enter and it just does the search and stuff like that. That will really add great value to a user. The design will look clean and stuff like that, and more users will be happy to use it. That is one way to do it. Another way is to actually ask client if someone of them have access to it. So you can always go and tell them that, hey, do you have access? If you have access, just ask these questions to the users and find the solutions to these questions. And that is another way. And the third thing which I suggest you is that if the client doesn't have the requirement clear in their mind, that's a great opportunity for you to show your thought leadership and tell them that, hey, this is what you should be doing and this is how it adds value, this is how you will make money, and this is how much money you will make, and how much part you can speak with marketing. They'll be able to help you out with that as well. So it's more like uh, dealing with the client that way. So these are like really hard clients. I also had my share of them, but that is
Yeah,
so.
eventually I will get the, I'm getting the opportunity to design entire product by myself.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's a great thing. But yeah, I mean, there's no direct workaround for it. Ultimately, the U in UX is missing here. The only experience is there.
Yeah, and sometimes I get scared that I may go wrong. Some decisions may go wrong, even it is
Hmm.
small, but it will affect. So that always is there back of mind.
I agree. That fear is there, but then you have to justify the value, what you are saying. So essentially, even in Amazon, right, my current job requires almost 60 to 70% of the time I'm talking with the stakeholders like the product managers, marketing folks, sales, what developers. So I'm like speaking with them just to convince them that how this is going to add the value to the users, because developer will try to do something in a easy way, marketing is going to ये कैसा बिकेगा, so they are trying to sell things, and product manager is going to make money out of it. So who is going to think about poor users, right? So essentially, even my situation is not exactly similar, but yeah, I sometimes have to like keep on telling them that
The
this is a
funniest thing
yeah.
is they keep on adding whatever the end user tells them, suggests them.
Hmm.
They keep on adding that feature. They don't think even it is needed or not. It is again, it is there or not,
Hmm.
existed or not. They keep on adding that features without any what cross checking.
Yeah, cross checking. I know, I understand what you're saying, and that is where you should ground your design principle and tell them, hey, this violates the fixed laws. Maybe you should actually think about the tappable area here. This feature is great according to you if you really want to include it, but this is how it will hurt your product as well. So maybe it will give them a second thought to think about that whether they should be adding it or they should consider what they're doing.
Yeah.
That is what I recommend. I mean,
Yeah, thank you so much, Prasanna. And I met you face to face in Design Board Talk
oh, did you?
2 years back.
Oh
Yeah,
man. Yeah,
it
that's
was in
great.
Baudan. Yeah,
Bhavdan, yeah.
Pune.
I
Yeah,
spoke that time there. Good to know.
yeah,
Cool, cool. So, I'll.
Hello, Prasanna.
Hey, Aditya.
Uh, yeah, I'm Aditya. I have a small doubt because I made a small project as is a freelance project for a
Hmm.
client. I
Hmm.
just designed their website UI.
Hmm.
It's only homepage and a couple of sign-in sign-ups. They didn't allow me to like go further. They didn't have time for that.
Hmm.
So we don't have NDA or anything. Can I post it on my portfolio? Like just it's not much. It's just homepage and a couple more pages. So is it too small to be on the portfolio? It's a real project, so
Hmm.
I wanted it to be on my portfolio, but it's not much content. So what can I do with it?
Yes, Aditya, I hear you. So, really speaking, even if you see my portfolio, so there are some live projects. For example, I have designed this this small website for Sadbhav. So essentially, I wanted it to be on my portfolio, but it doesn't have too much meat in it. So that's why I treat it as a secondary project, and my primary projects are hypothetical. So like you have seen the two ones which I presented. So yes, the straight answer to your question is you should put this in your portfolio if you don't have any NDA and no one has any apprehension about it. However, that won't be your main project. Your main project, you will have to redesign it, or you will have to pick up another problem and solve it from the scratch. That will actually show your entire process and show the depth of your thinking, because that one project may not do that. That's all I'm
Yes, yes.
saying.
Yeah, got it. Got it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, Aditya. Ninja is asking a question. I'll just take this because I guess Ninja is waiting for a long time. After how you have performed user interview in times of COVID when there's no interaction happening for real, how do you, because you asked me this question, actually I reach out to a organizer because Amazon has a contract with usertesting.com. I reach out to them and ask. Otherwise, the best way is to get your marketing team and ask them that, hey, I want to get in contact with some of the customers that are already onboarded, if those are onboarded. If not, you can ask them that, are you in touch with potential customer, because marketing team would actually do their own market research and they might help you there. uh, and then finally there is the last option, that ask your neighbors. So if you are using a product like stuff like the product on which I am working, I am okay asking my neighbors, right? but but that's not something I would do like a front. Okay. Hey Ashitosh, want to speak?
Hi Prasanna, hi. Just like I was hearing out,
Yeah.
I'm just a learner right now. I'm building everything from scratch and something, and just like how you said, like talk to your neighbor. But until and unless the hiring manager or whoever the
Hmm.
person is looking out on my portfolio or something,
Hmm.
I can just design out my own persona. I can just fake it out.
Hmm.
It's not a problem because obviously I know what problem I am solving.
Hmm.
So that is how I can trick them. Like, okay, these are the personas. I
Hmm.
would lay down the problems over there. Okay, so that is my main motive of the whole portfolio project, that
Got
this
you.
was the main problem I put up. These are the personas I created. Like, these were the people I interacted. They had these problems. So is it a good idea or not? Because I don't know anyone
Hmm.
would go down the lane to talk to the user that you had this problem or no?
So no, actually, it's not such a great idea. I'll tell you a couple of reasons for that. The first thing, don't build your own hypothetical persona. The problem will arise if they go into nitty-gritties. For example, what are the questions that you ask the users? So or what are the responses that you got? So it's easy actually. It doesn't take too much time. It will take as much time as you are thinking out the persona. Actually, you just go and ask. Okay, it doesn't harm you too much, but it will be very hypothetical. You'll not learn how to do that in industry. So imagine that now you are hired by that X company where you have presented a portfolio. Now they ask you that, hey dude, I have seen your portfolio. You have built a beautiful persona. Now build a persona for us, and that problem is very much live. So essentially, they are asking you to like build a persona for which you have now paid money for. So you will not actually learn how to build a persona. Instead of that, go and speak with the user. It's very straightforward. If there are no users available, just go to and talk to your friends over phone or something. They will. That's a good
All
way.
right. Thanks. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, man. So before we go ahead, I'll just take Aishwarya's question. I think she's also waiting for some time. And the question is that what questions did the hiring recruiters ask you when you apply for a job? What expectations or the benchmark they were looking for in a portfolio? Benchmarks, no, they don't actually look for benchmark, but normally if your portfolio is matching with the job description, that really helps. For example, if they're looking for someone with UI skills, or specifically if they're looking for someone who is good at designing for Android or iOS, and your portfolio reflects that, that's something they will be happy seeing. What questions they ask you? Typically, four questions I will strongly recommend you, and this is a topic for another meetup, but I will just talk off my head. The first question is they will ask you that, hey, tell me something about yourself, and that's where you factually speak something like stuff like, hey, I am Aishwar Mathur, and I did my study from such and such an institute. I have worked for this company. I'm doing this. This is what I like doing, and that's the second question which they commonly ask you is, show us the project that you are proud about, and that is where you pull out your portfolio and show them the project which is your best project according to you. The third thing they typically end up asking you, what are your typical skill sets or typically tools that you use. That is where you speak about the processes and tools that you are fond of. I'm saying fond of and not really something that you have done but you're not proud of. And the fourth thing that they will typically end up asking is that they'll ask you for a life problem. That's, for example, they'll ask you situational question like, imagine that a few moments back Shweta was asking that you don't have access to users, what are you going to do? So that's the kind of four questions that I think about top of my head, but I can like we can have another interaction over the meetups for this. I'll take Fiona's question as well. How long does a website UI project usually take to complete along with responsive designs? Okay, that depends on what is the depth of your question. So if you are building a huge website like Amazon is building, then it will take a hell of a time. It will take years if you really ask me. However, if you are building a simple website like the portfolio on which I have just shown you a few moments back, which contain a few pages, it takes hardly like maybe 15-20 days if you have everything right in the place. But yeah, that's how it is. Last question, last as in the last question from the list here, then again you can start asking me. Prachi is asking how to reach out to companies like Amazon and Google for job. uh, Putting up your application on the job portal is the least effective method. What you really need to do is ask your friend to refer you to Amazon. Particularly, what happens that whenever I have referred someone to Amazon, the hiring manager immediately comes back to me and asks me that, hey, suppose, do you know Prachi? And I will say that, hey, I worked with Prachi for on my last company. She's great team builder. She's great at building information architecture. She's hands-on with Figma. She knows all the details of how about the Android material design and stuff like that. So hearing that, your chances of getting a job are really high. So if someone refers you with that kind of good words, that really helps. But yeah, that's what it is. So mic is open. Anyone else has any questions? Come on, don't be shy. Shweta is saying It's great to see you again. Yeah, Shweta, do you have any questions? You are free to ask, okay?
I have many questions, but don't know what about mine.
No, it's okay. I can take questions as many questions you require to ask.
Actually, I'm still not like satisfied with what was my first question, that
Hmm.
I'm good at UI thing, and how can I? It is in my veins, designs in my veins. It's good
Hmm.
visuals. It's my uh, passion.
Hmm.
So even how can we make bad design and focus on UX skills?
No, 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 don't make bad design. So what you do is this, right? See,
Yeah.
I will just step back and ask you this question. What exactly is UX? UX is nothing but the background of how your visual looks. So if you have a beautiful, like someone mentioned cred, right? I think Alka was mentioning cred. So, and which is totally right. So such great designs. So what makes this great designs great is their user experience. So not only visuals but also the logic that has gone into building it, and that is where you should actually build. You should support your great designs with. So those. So suppose you have like already built a screen. Why? What all logic did you use before you actually before you actually go ahead and think in those terms? Like what actually makes that design to be a great design is what I think you should focus on that aspect. Does that kind of answer your question,
Uh, yeah, a little
Shali?
bit, but still, I want to dig in deep because see, I'm facing this issue.
Hmm.
Like my portfolio, I seems it is visually it is very good, but I feel whether I'm standing in UX aspect, or how they
Hmm.
are judging me, like that.
Okay, I would like to add something to this again.
Hmm.
So, most of the people also misunderstand design as how it looks, that is aesthetic. Design is primarily how it works. So, if you get that right, rest of the things will start falling in place. That is how I see. And then again, idea founder Don Norman, he also says design is not like how it looks and feels. It is primarily how it works. So if you get that right in your design, rest of the things you can keep updating.
Hmm. Okay.
Good to hear that. Yeah, that's a very good way to put this.
It was, I guess, Steve Jobs' line.
I,
Okay. I
I,
think I heard Norman saying that in the book, which is Design of Everyday Thinking. So
Okay.
maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
nonetheless a good line to hear.
Yeah.
Cool, cool.
Yeah, but I have a experience also related. I'm using an app, but I don't know, like 80% UX, but 20% UI also work. Like if I am not looking like I'm looking at an app, and if it is not looking like trendy, not trendy, like it should be a modern or something. Like the first thing is that if it is cluttered or something, so maybe I will not proceed to see the UX part. So I think both should be maintained
Hmm.
Correct.
in the,
That's right. And the ratio you are mentioning is exactly right.
yeah.
80% UX and 20% of UI.
Yeah. So how we can get evaluated our portfolio? Is there any way, or mentor? Or again, my second question would be how we can get mentor even.
So I mentor at ADP List, and there are a lot of good mentors if you reach out to them. So there is a site called adplist.org.
Yeah,
Um,
I know.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's one way to go about it, and I also do mentoring out there. So yesterday only I was speaking with Pawan, I guess. But yeah, you can reach out to me if you have any questions or something that I can help you with.
Sure. Thank you.
Hello, Prasanna. I have one more question.
Sure, Aditya.
I have good knowledge with front end. HTML, CSS and stuff. So should I be advertising myself, like not advertising, like while in interviews, like should I be like expressing it, showing it that I know these skills too, front end skills,
Yeah.
like is it important to show, or what should I do?
So in my honest opinion, and I am open to any other folks also chiming in here, right? So in my honest opinion, there is a great demand for the people who can do front end, UI and UX. So I don't call that full stack, but there is a good demand for folks. So I suggest that yes, you should do that. But again, check with the job description. So for example, I don't know front end, right? And I don't even qualify for such jobs. But however, be wary that what you really want to do in your career. So do you really want to turn out to be a front end developer who also does design, or do you want to be a designer first and then like do bits of front end as and when needed? So that's what you should be showcasing, and that's what should reflect in your portfolio as well. So like I showed you in one of the projects, I actually built like the user research first, and then I tried to create a sort of UX to it, and then the UI. So I really tried to showcase my UX and research skills over the UI skills. So that is what you should also do. Like in your portfolio, you can say that I have built this, but this is a small part of the entire story. That's all I'll say. And please feel free to chime in, anyone, or someone who have got experience of this sort of thing.
Hi. I have also a question.
Yes, Pawan.
I think 2 months ago I watched a video of Saptarshi Prakash. I-
Swiggy. Yeah.
so he explained that the artificial intelligence will take over the UI job.
Really.
So I am afraid of, like, I am more focused on UI and graphic design or something. So that will something bothering me. Like, is it actually a, like, because I read about one also
Hmm.
about so basically that was an artificial intelligence agency.
Hmm.
So nobody knows about that, but he was like that was performing, and like actually that work is actually working in the market. So is it right, or like?
Oh man, Saptarshi is a great guy. I honestly cannot say that. But however, I will suggest that, see, you attend my tomorrow's call. The call is, I'm going to present two case studies where I have used UX for AI, if that makes sense to you. So how to design the UX behind the artificial intelligence is what I'm going to speak tomorrow on. If you want, you can attend it. It's on FIFO Talks. But essentially saying that what I'm saying in that talk is that, see, your UX is going to complement AI. So essentially, what essentially is artificial intelligence is that someone has to, it has still has users to it. It could have something like the users are still going to benefit from the design. So who is going to decide that? The artificial intelligence cannot do that, right? Someone has to teach the artificial intelligence as well. Someone has to build that. So that is where the UX will come in. So I don't see that happening. I mean, UX won't die that way, at least. But yeah, that's just my opinion. uh, Anika is asking that short-term course like 1 year's master's course. Honestly, I don't know such courses. I'm really sorry for that. HFI is a good place. It's a 10 days course, costs 1.5 lakhs last heard, but it has got industry value. It's not a course. It's more like a certification. But that's the only thing I know. So I'm really sorry I can't answer your question. Share links for uh, so Kankesh, it's on my it's on my this thing, LinkedIn. You can have a look, but I can share it with you, right? Uh, can someone send tomorrow's like that we can join? Oh yeah, I can do that here, right? I'll do that because a lot of folks are, there's a lot of buzz around AI design play an important role. Yeah, that's true. Uh, yeah, thanks, Kankesh, for filling in. Which PG would you recommend in India? I only recommend IITs and NITs, but that's a very subjective thing. Yeah. So you can keep up with your questions. Yeah, probably Kankesh knows about this course. And meanwhile, I'll just share the link to tomorrow's talk as well. It's FIFO talk. You can have a look. If you want, you can join that. Essentially, I'm going to present two case studies which are like very different from what currently you are seeing here. But yeah.
I have another question.
Sure, Pawan.
So basically, as we build up our portfolio, like we have collected 3 or 4 cases, but maybe we have collected from different industry, like one from education, one from e-commerce, one. So now coming to like we are applying for internship or something, a job. Is it like we have to focus on particular something like healthcare, or maybe we have not done any project related to healthcare, but there is some vacancy on that company. So do they consider our portfolio? I mean, maybe
Yes,
they
yes.
will like they maybe target some other person who has done some work case study on the healthcare. So, how can like we have to focus our interviewer or company for that purpose?
That helps, right? So essentially speaking, if you show your knowledge or your abilities in a particular domain, for example banking, and you're applying to banking companies, that helps. However, if you see my portfolio, I don't have any e-commerce, yet I was selected for Amazon. I don't have any technology, yet I was selected for Google. So to be honest with you, your skills matter more, but it's always good to have some domain knowledge that shows that okay, you are aware about the happenings in that particular field. And that is where my earlier suggestion for picking a problem from the particular domain using Economic Times comes from. But yeah, that's the short answer to your question. Okay. Anyone else wants to go? Anil is asking a question. Hi Prasanna, I have one. Unfortunately, I don't have a mic working at the moment. Earlier, you have shown something from economic website to help build portfolio. Can you repeat it? I lost my connection. Sure, man. No problem, Anil. So Anil, just what I was telling, that pick a industry relevant problem for your portfolio, and how to go about it is very simple. Just go to Economic Times, say you are interested, and this also ties to the Pawan's earlier question. Just go to the Economic Times, and there you will see a list of news which industry is facing. For example, there was a news about uh, customers not knowing about the outages in a particular banking sector. So just pick up that problem and try to solve it in a UX perspective. You don't have to read the entire news or something. Just pick up that headline of the article and solve it. This will actually take you one step ahead, and you will be able to solve that problem, and also show that particular solution to the industry. And if someone from the industry asks you that, hey, why did you pick up this problem, this is not even relevant, you can always point them to the article saying that, hey, the companies are facing this problem. Maybe your company doesn't, but say Reserve Bank of India is facing the problem, and that is what I am solving for. So actually it solves the problem. That's what I was telling about Economic Times. I hope that answers the question. Anyone else has any questions? I'll just yes, Pawan, go ahead.
So how can I like, as you said that we have to like focus for a particular category like that industry. So how can I decide like which industry do I have to like there are like
Yeah, I
startup
know.
have something a trendy like one like earlier there is a payment
Yeah,
app, everybody want to build up their payment app,
correct.
so that was a kind of trendy, but like something which is has some future. So how can I focus on that particular industry?
I don't have straight answer to your question, because it's a matter of belief. Like for example, I believe that banking, BFSI, right, banking, finance, security, and insurance has a great future, and that is where I would join such company. Then I believe that Amazon has a great future, so I joined them. But it's like buying stocks, right? It's like I don't have straight answer to your question, but it's like where will you invest your career into? And I mean it's a matter of belief, but I still I have a belief that there are companies that have been surviving here for a really long time, and those companies are not won't go down easily. and that is where you should join, and that is where you should pick up the questions for, and that is where you should visit Economic Times and go under that particular sector and pick your answers to. But it's a very subjective thing. Suppose you're interested in healthcare, I say you go ahead with healthcare, get a job in healthcare, but you'll be really happy. But that's all I can tell. Okay, anyone else has any questions? You can type in the chat if you want. I have got a couple of more minutes in case you wish to ask me.
Okay, I have a quick question, Alka here again. If anybody in this forum knows a good design college in India which does not have age as a bar, because I wrote NID 2 years ago. That was my last attempt because I was 34, I guess. So after that, you can't apply.
Hmm.
And I had an accident. Kind of my finger was broken when
Oh.
I was doing my um, studio test in NID. So I missed it by 10 marks. Now, any other college which does not have such age bar or something good in India?
Hmm.
Because NIT does have a age as a bar for even for master's program.
IIT doesn't have H bar. Ninja is saying Shushti Design School, but yeah.
Is Srishti good? I don't know. So yeah, go to Srishti Institute. Thank you. Yeah, that was my question. If anybody has answers, just you can ping me.
I think is Neha still on the call? She actually is from MIT Pune, so she might be able to tell whether MIT has a H bar or not. No, I guess she left. But yeah, MIT is a good place if it doesn't have H bar, but I'm not sure on that.
MIT has a H bar.
Oh, okay, said it
I am
has.
from MIT.
Oh, okay, cool. Good, good. Nice to know.
For master, there shouldn't be. I don't know. They need to.
Yeah, you shouldn't have, right?
I mean, although I have seen a lot of good colleges out of India. They don't have such age bar. Yeah, India does.
Yeah, I agree. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'll take Kankesh. Kankesh is asking, as a designer, when you try to present your ideas to stakeholder or your clients, are a little hesitant even now. For them, UX is all about making screens. Can you tell me if I should be stubborn as a designer if I want? It's not about, see, the screens are the end product that you are going to show, because your clients or the stakeholders won't really understand. And I like the way Alka put it this way, that actually what goes behind the screen is what you should tell, what value the screen is adding, and that is beyond the design of the screen itself. So that is what I think, that is kind of a question that clients will not understand. But if you start telling that, if you put a say you use a particular image or an icon, or you create a new interaction that will actually add value to the life of the user or solve some of the pain points, that is where actually speak like a designer, and the screen becomes secondary in that case. Then the discussion shifts towards why do you need that button or why do you need that interaction. But yeah.
And one more thing to add, where what Shweta was talking about, that she cannot tell people that what she's doing is
Hmm.
right, and when they keep changing. I have been in that situation, and the only solution I found is that educate them, because people on the other side of table are not familiar with the terms we are
Correct.
using.
Agreed.
So there has been a scene where I was designing website page for the same startup, and they have a red color logo now.
Hmm.
From the ad, so they want red and black
Yeah.
design. It's a very small thing. They want red text on the black background, so they are not able to see what I am trying to tell, because it is not gonna look good. Is not what is a satisfactory answer.
Hmm.
Tell them the readability is not gonna be
Hmm.
there. So when you introduce them to a concept of readability, typography, that it exists, they are not familiar with these kind of uh, stuff. So you need to educate them, and when you transfer that education, then they start probably going googling and start
Hmm.
reading about it. What is readability? They did not
True.
face that problem with other applications, so they don't know the concept of readability.
That is true. Yeah, you need to tell what you're saying, and why it makes sense as well. Because if you just say readability, you can tell that half of your users are not going to be able to read what that red text on black background. So yeah, that actually is a good point you are saying.
Yeah, agree, Alka. Thank you.
Prachi is asking that in a startup company, they don't follow the whole UX process from start to research, mostly directly jump to UI. But according to me, the whole process of UX is important to solve a problem. That is true. And I am more interested in UX. So, what to do in this scenario? And here is my thought, right? Maybe Alka can also tell because she looks like she actually knows the answer to this better.
You want, do you want the job more or your process more? That's how you will. That's all. Because see, there are back-end researches also happening, something which is not approved. You cannot go talk to your client, but you might find someone in your surroundings who is in the same background. And you cannot have a research like pen and paper and documented research, but you can open a conversation with them and talk to them. Like I was in a fintech, so anyone in the banking sector I found, whether it was on a dating site or a friend's friend, I will ask them questions. So it's not a research as in a very documented research which you can put it, but just to educate yourself, you can have that conversation with people. That's how I did a lot of my research. But yeah, I get your point. You're not allowed to do it because I used to go, I was directly reporting to the CEO of the company and I used to ask him, can I talk to people just, can I just be a silent participant in a meeting? I will get to know what they are looking for. And he's like, no, 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 you don't need to be there. You don't understand business. You just design. If I don't understand business, I cannot design. That is not the concept he's willing to understand. So you go for other methods.
Hey Prasanna, I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear
Alka here.
you. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate this platform, and just to chime in on what the conversation is,
Hmm.
like I see the conversation is mostly about designers not having leverage, and like I'm a product designer at Mind Valley based in Malaysia now. I am actually from Pakistan, so yeah, back home I was working with an agency. I had multiple clients. I've seen like I have like a good 6 years of experience,
Hmm.
and I have faced all these problems. And like one like the most important thing, or the most important word here for everybody, I think Shweta and Alka also mentioned to, like talking to people and talking like going and talking to other people for research and stuff like that. But the most important thing I think I found is leverage. Like you have to find or make your place, either if it's a client, because even in the current environment, although when I was moving to product, I was very excited that I'll have more power, and like I'll see research and stuff like this. But like my bubble was really burst in a very bad way when I moved to the product, and I found out like there's no researchers here that focus on UX. Like there's data for marketing because we are marketing led. So it's always going to be a challenge. We can blame the companies, we can blame our clients and stuff,
Hmm.
but you have to have like conversations where you, like, before even teaching them, like I know Alka is correct, you have to teach them, but before that you have to find the leverage, and you have to you know uh, talk to them about problems, and like make friendships or whatever, like get them to get them to listen first, right? So you hear them out, you tell them, or you listen to their problems. You even sometimes I've let the UX thing of it go to just find my leverage. So initially when I was working with a client at my first job, they actually told me to put a button before the form on the top. So like like they just told me like the button has to be there so the user understands. Like I told them this won't work, but they didn't listen, and I let them do it. Like I let that go into production, and then it didn't work. The number of people actually filling up the form, like it went lower, like it was falling down a lot. And then like they came back and I told them like, remember I talked about this, and then that is how I found my leverage with that client. And then even after they hired in-house designers, I was still the go-to person. Like they would like the project manager there, he would just call me into the meetings, and even they had their own designers, they would ask me to talk to sorry they would ask them to talk to me about the solutions. And yeah, I think that's how you do the whole thing.
Hmm.
I agree with Taha. I have done this. It's a dirty secret. Sorry. So if they don't listen to you and you know it's for sure not gonna work out, let it go. And if it is not too much of an impact, let it go to production. And then you go to them with the result like, see, this is not working. That's another way. Then you find your leverage to talk about it. And I have done it.
Yeah, like initially, because like I understand, like it's another thing that Prasanna was mentioning is like you have to have your stance and you have to communicate what you're saying, right? You have to communicate the idea and why you're saying it, instead of just saying like it won't be readable to users, like why, right? You have to be very articulative about, like what it is, why it is, and how it won't work. If you can't sell it, then obviously they won't listen to you. But sooner or later, yeah, they come back and you can find your space.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's it.
And same thing, I think what Prachi is also talking about, like back when you were an agency, your company, even they care more about the client than your UX process. And again, like you have to find the leverage with everybody in the company, outside the company. So it's mostly about leverage. And then once they give you the space, you prove that your process is working, then again you gain the confidence to have a harder or stronger stance. And then obviously when you have a stronger stance or you become the alpha in a meeting, they'll start listening, and everything I think starts falling into place. So be patient with this, everybody. Like I see a lot of people talking about companies not listening to them, clients not listening to them, or they're not being able to do the UX part. It takes time. And like don't fall for this perception that it's just the company not allowing me. It's also a weakness on my end that I'm not able to convince them. So try with newer methods, try with different methods, try coming up with 10 design solutions. Even they don't ask you for it, but just give them. So even right now at my job, because our CEO is like at some points, at some parts of the product, he gets very involved into things. And then like you can't you can't say no to your CEO, right? But what you have to do is like you have to show him things. You have to show him 5 solutions or 10 solutions, and then tell them why it would work. And maybe he agree sometimes, or maybe he wouldn't. But yeah, that's
What the try.
Yeah, I agree. You should earn trust. That's what it's all about.
yeah, even out of your job, in your relationships, everything.
Yeah, true.
True, true.
Cool. So, I think we're out of time, and I'm really sorry to cut this off. Maybe we can arrange another meetup, like maybe off the IDF or something. But yeah, it's great connecting with all of you, and thanks everyone for giving the inputs as well. Um, and well, that's about it.
Thank you, Prasanna.
Hey, thanks,
Thanks.
Bhavin.
Yeah, it was really great.
It was wonderful and great to have you on this chat. Yeah.
Good. Thanks, Bhavin, for joining.
Thank you, Prasanna, for describing your experience and giving us insight for the portfolio.
No, it's my pleasure. Thanks a lot for attending this call.
Thanks, guys. Thank you
Hey,
so much.
Taha.
Bye bye.
Thanks.
Hearing me
Bye.
out.
Bye-bye.